Hello. I shoot a Canik TP9 Elite Subcompact in IDPA. Enjoy it very much. I kind of wish it had a full-size grip, but that's a discussion for another day. At about 1,000 rounds in, my slide lock lever spring failed and I had to replace it. I'll soon post a separate video on that in case you're interested. It was likely user error, not a Canik issue. When I went to disassemble the frame, I ran into a huge problem with the roll pins. Let me back up a little bit. I'm not a machinist. I don't have that knowledge or tool set, but I do have a logical mind. I take direction well, and I can usually figure things out, usually. I went to YouTube for guidance. Some said that to remove the roll pins, you need to drive them down from on top. Others said no, because they were driven in from the top initially, you need to drive them out from the bottom. But the consensus was, either way, these pins are hard to remove. You're going to have to pound them out. Full-size hammer pounding hard. Okay, let's start off. No mag. Nothing in the chamber. Point the gun in a safe direction. Pull the trigger. Pull the tabs down. Release the slide. Let it go forward. Remove the slide. Put it off to one side. Okay. Now, if you're going to drive the pin down from the top, the idea is that you drive this pin down about halfway. And when you do, the top of the pin will be below this shaft. The bottom of the pin will be sticking out below the tab, but it will be above this ledge that goes across here, and you'll be able to remove the tab. I intended to drive it out from the bottom. And so therefore what I did was take a wood burning set with a needle nose and I burned a little channel here for the pin punch to slide in. Didn't have to do that over here. That channel was already existed in the Canik frame. All right, so I started pounding and I ended up, even though I intended to drive it out from the bottom, I was pounding from the bottom and that wasn't working, so then I started pounding from the top. And I pounded and I pounded and I pounded. I was pounding so hard that the tip of my punch began to deform on the tip. I had to file it down to make it smooth. Basically took some 400 grit sandpaper and just rubbed it back and forth while I rolled the pin in my hand to smooth off the rough, what was becoming the rough edge. And the more I pounded, the punch itself started to bend and twist. I was afraid it was going to snap off. What I ended up doing was taking the punch and cutting it off halfway and then filing it down. And if you can see that, it is a very, very sharp point on the end of it. Okay, and at that point, no pun intended, when I drove it down from the top, what happened was that the roll pin actually twisted a little bit into a spiral, but it did come out halfway. It did come down below this shaft, and I was able to remove the tab. When I went to remove the slide stop lever, I did it from the bottom up, and just a couple of taps, and the pin dropped right out. So that was very easy. I want to show you something. Let me remove the right-hand side of the lever. The way it works is there is a hole, a shaft, in the right component, and the punch has to go through that, and then it goes through the hole in the shaft itself. And what was happening was the shaft that I had narrowed through the filing would go through those and go all the way through. But notice that it stops. It stops. The diameter of the 16-inch punch is such that it will not go through the hole in that shaft. The diameter of the punch is greater than the hole in the shaft. What the heck bananas, as my granddaughter would say. Well, I think my conclusion is simple. The gun was made in Turkey. They probably used metric pins. My punch was a 16-inch punch. That's 1.588 millimeters. Pardon me. I bet they used 1.5 millimeter pins. If so, no wonder the 1/16-inch punches would have to be hit so hard. You had to deform it to be able to get it to drive through the shaft. But if you're using a 1.5 millimeter punch, you probably don't have to work that hard at it. Use the right tool for the job. A friend of mine just bought a new Canik, and it came with punches for the pins. That's probably adapting to the American market. For the rest of us, try to find a metric punch set, or just file a little off the top. Good luck and safe shooting.